It was nice to hear the research paper from my colleague. And if it's okay, I will share my screen now and start.
Yes, please.
I will present a research paper conducted by my colleagues from the Faculty of Economics, University of Montenegro, Milan Radonic, Vladimir Đurišić, Nikola Mišnić, and me. Our paper is titled Testing Sponsorship Recall and Recognition After the Games of the Small States of Europe, Montenegro 2019. The declining efficiency of traditional media and the growing need for two-way communication, as well as changes in personal priorities and social values of the consumers, are some of the factors that are contributing to the exponential growth of the application of sponsorship, especially in sport. In this regard, sponsorship has proven to be a very successful communication channel, and also specifically in sport, since the main goal of sponsorship is the improvement of brand image, attitude towards the brand, as well as the increase of the level of brand awareness by the consumers. Certain goals are also related to the behavioral aspect of the consumers. Those are purchasing intention and the purchasing decision. This concept of sponsorship is gaining increasing attention also in academic literature and in practice. It's enabling the transfer of positive atmosphere from a sport event to the brand that is sponsoring this event. And it also can bring prestige to the company, as well as protection from unfair competition, taking into account the fees that are paid for sponsorship. This concept has evolved rapidly over the last decades, and it has grown from a simple philanthropic activity to one of the most significant media of corporate and brand communications. So sports sponsorship can be highly beneficial both to sponsors due to its ability to create a positive impression and association through image transfer, and also to the organizers of the events with receiving a significant financial help. However, as an isolated medium, sponsorship cannot achieve notable success in communicating with customers. This activity does not end with just paying the sponsorship fee, but it is quite necessary to manage and leverage the sponsorship investment in order to achieve maximum visibility and in order for the investment to be profitable. So to this end, companies use different techniques and media to, as it said in the literature, activate sponsorship investment. In researching brand awareness, in the literature, two measures are most commonly used, and they are listed here in the slide, recall and recognition. By researching the recall, consumers are asked to state the brand name from their memory without any incentive from the researcher. However, on the other side, recognition refers to customers' ability to name brands after he or she is being presented with a list of brands. So we can say that recall is unaided, and recognition in that sense is aided because a customer or a respondent is presented with a list of brands, names, or their company logos. There's also one other construct in researching brand awareness, and it is called top-of-mind recall. And it is usually the brand that comes to mind first when respondents are asked a certain question. The Games of the Small States of Europe are a short duration sport event, and the aim of this paper was to explore the effectiveness of sponsorship through two previously mentioned measures, recall and recognition, and as well we have included the top-of-mind recall. So as you may already all know, the Games of the Small States of Europe is a biennial multi-sport event. In 2019, Montenegro got to organize the event for the first time. after joining 8 other countries with fewer than 1 million inhabitants in 2009. So the 18th edition of the Games were organized in Montenegro. There were 9 participating countries, 846 athletes who competed in 10 sports, and overall there were 2,331 participants. The Games of the Small States of Europe were and still are the largest sport event that's ever been held in Montenegro. In this research, we have conducted content analysis along with a statistical method to analyze the survey data. An online anonymous survey was conducted precisely 6 months after the Games ended, and it was distributed to participants using online communication channels. There was an eliminatory question in the survey, which was whether in any role the participant took part at the Games, even as a spectator or a fan. If the answer was no, the survey ended for such respondents. But here on the graph, you can see the respondents' roles as participants on the Games given here. So most of our respondents were volunteers and then athletes with 25%. We were hoping for a larger share of athletes, but unfortunately for the time frame, we have only received 25%. We separated the respondents regarding gender and also age and education level. So in order to distinguish top-of-mind recall from recall of several sponsors, as I've previously mentioned, respondents were firstly asked to name just one sponsor that they remember first. And this way we would research their top-of-mind recall, the brand that comes to mind first when they have to remember a sponsor from this event. This figure shows that the company with highest top-of-mind recall level of 35% was Sport Vision, a sport retailer from Montenegro. The highest percentage of respondents therefore listed this company when they were asked to name one sponsor of the Games. However, as you can see in the graph, 32% of respondents wrote that they do not remember any sponsor company, and this is the second most frequent response. Jugopetrol, Eco, and Montenegrin Telecom are following with 10% and 6% of top-of-mind recall. Also, you can see on the graph that the respondents named some companies or organizations that were actually not sponsors of the event. For example, 3.8% named Montenegrin Olympic Committee as a sponsor, who was obviously the organizer of the Games, and some companies such as Montenegro Petrol or Vodadiva with a less than 1%. So as I said, the highest level of top-of-mind recall was achieved by Sport Vision. They are a leader in sport retail in Montenegro, and the company has become the Montenegrin Olympic Committee sponsor in 2015. Ever since then, they have tied its brand with Olympic values, and also they have managed and leveraged their sponsorship in every opportunity using different activation methods, and this is what is of particular importance in sponsorship activation. Specifically during the Games, this company was the most active on social media, making it the most visible sponsor of the Games. Also, since this company was the official supplier of the equipment for Montenegrin delegation, it is important to say that 73% of athletes that have listed the top-of-mind sponsor have actually listed this company as the top-of-mind sponsor. And here on the slide you can see just one example of the sponsorship activation that was conducted through their Instagram page. The next company that was named the second top-of-mind recall sponsor was Jugopetrol Eco. The participant category that listed this company the most were actually volunteers, which was interesting. This company became a sponsor of the Montenegrin Olympic Committee only in April 2019, which is just 1 month before the Games started. So with achieving 10% of top-of-mind recall, this company can see this as a pretty good result since taking into account the time frame, since there were only a sponsor of the Montenegrin Olympic Committee for 1 month. This graph shows the sample when testing brand memorability or recall. So we were testing how capable are respondents to recall brands sponsoring the games of the small states and which of those they have remembered. On this figure, the results are of the greatest importance to marketing managers since there was no suggestions towards the companies in the survey. Similar with the previous results, Sport Vision received 23% of recall and Jugopetrol Eco 22% of all respondents. Then there are companies such as Montenegrin Telecom, Lovchen Insurance, and National Media Broadcast of Montenegro, which are the sponsors. Maybe the Montenegrin Telecom did receive higher recall percentage than other 3 companies because it has more established brand and better known brand, even though the actual visibility of all the sponsors at the games was the same. It's also significant to state that 1 out of 6 respondents did not recall by themselves any company sponsoring the games. Now we can see how the results change when we introduce company names in the survey. So in the following questions, we were researching recognition. So it's so-called in literature aided recall. We separated sponsor based on their industry. So given the few examples, first one is sport apparel, footwear and equipment industry. It's a logical assumption that respondents taking part at a sport event represent important target group and committed group of buyers of sports goods and equipment, and therefore company Sport Vision can be satisfied with the effects of their sponsorship investment during the games, since over 80% of respondents can actually recognize Sport Vision name as well as their strongest brand Nike, which was actually the equipment sponsor for a Montenegrin delegation. Around 18% of other respondents were incorrect when the respondents chose the name of a company that was not sponsoring the games, or similarly a brand that was not the equipment sponsor. When it comes to telecommunication industry, high recognition of the company sponsoring the games was noticed with 78% correct answers of the respondents that chose telecom. So roughly saying 1 out of 5 respondents could not recognize proper telecommunication sponsor of the games. This percentage of mistaken answers we can explain by the consequence of a strong competition among the players on this market in Montenegro. And also company MTEL is a sponsor of the Montenegrin basketball team, while company Telenor used to be a sponsor of the Montenegrin Olympic Committee in 2010. So these facts can potentially explain the confusion in the respondent's mind, as both of these companies still do or have done in the past link themselves to sport through sponsorship investment, even though they were not particularly the sponsor of this event. The final questions in the survey compared to the previous ones, as I said, the respondents were firstly presented with a list of names of the brands, and then in these final questions they were presented with company logos. This was supposed to increase the correct recognition compared to previous questions because sponsor logos were placed all over the Olympic Village, courts and halls, the website, and on all official documents. So you can see on the slide, the orange text in cells shows incorrect recognition by the respondents, even when presented with company logos. However, it is important to state that some of the actual event sponsors have achieved higher recognition compared to unaided recall from the previous questions. For example, Jugopetrol Eco achieved almost 30% of recognition, while it received only 22% of recall. And also National Media Broadcast received 27% of recognition and only 4.3% recall. In general, the results of this research have shown a satisfying level of recall and even more recognition 6 months after the games. This points to the fact that sponsors were receiving significant visibility during the games, which allowed for their brands to be remembered by the participants. Since logo placement is significant in understanding the decision-making process by the consumer. However, a more in-depth analysis which we conducted indicates that provided brand visibility by the organizer through logo placement is not enough to achieve full potentials of sponsorship. Therefore, the companies should put more effort into activating their sponsorship investment. The results of our research show that some companies did receive a satisfying level of sponsorship recall while others didn't. However, even though the recall was not at a significant level for companies such as, for example, telecom or watch and insurance, the recognition of these companies was at a high level. So it is clear that such companies did gain visibility and did strengthen their brand. However, additional activities such as those conducted by top-of-mind sponsors, Sport Vision or Jugopetrol, were necessary in order to impact participants' memory even more. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Suncica. I believe I pronounce your name correct, huh? Suncica, is that?
Suncica.
Suncica.
Yes.
Sorry, Suncica.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay, so I will first of all ask the audience if they have any question. If not, I was going to ask one question to you. First of all, I remember in last year during the conference, 16th annual conference of Montenegrin Sports Academy in Dubrovnik, there was a presentation with its small Olympic Games, you know, and then I also remember the logo of Montenegro, Smokvic. Is that correct?
Yes.
Smokvic, yes. And there, of course, there is a reason why they selected this logo. So, which is a good promotion because I still remember it, even though 1 year passed, I still remember it. But for regarding the marketing, so as far as I understand, so in terms of sports apparel, the companies achieved a successful level. This is my understanding. But in terms of telecommunications, they didn't reach the satisfaction level, I guess. So how can you explain this, in fact?
Yes, I understand your question. I think that one of the most important advantages that the sponsor from the sport equipment industry did have is the long-term relationship with Montenegrin Olympic Committee. And the fact that they did also sponsor the Montenegrin delegation in equipment for the previous Olympic Games, and they were part of the organizing committee for several events and attending events from the Montenegrin Olympic Committee. And I believe that in the mind of our respondents, at least, they are somehow connected, so they were recognized the most. However, the company Telecom, which was one of the sponsors, became a sponsor of the Games of the Small States of Europe and the sponsor of the Montenegrin Olympic Committee several months before the Games. As I have previously said in the presentation, was somehow taken the place of Telenor, who was previously the sponsor of the Montenegrin Olympic Committee. So that's why possibly the consumers or the respondents are still a little bit confused. This is what's in literature called ambush marketing in some sort. So the companies try to, even though they are not sponsors, through several activities or their representation in the media, try to tie themselves and link themselves to brands or events in order to be recognized as sponsors, since sponsors generally in over 95% of cases receive a positive attitude from the respondents.
Okay. Thank
I
you.
don't know if this answered your question.
No, of course, yeah. definitely understand. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution to the Congress and also for your participation. I think there is no other question. So I would like